50 years, nobody is created anything that is, that stood out as being new.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know if that answers what
Well, it
you
does,
want.
yeah. And I think you touched on a number of things that very little in life is not well. Most things in life, put it this way, is a derivative of something else, as you've rightly said.
Absolutely.
Whether it's music,
Absolutely.
we have a number of influences on music we like, music we don't like, even, which can come together. But I think it was in the good book, the King Solomon. I don't know why I should remember this, but
Yeah.
the well-known phrase
Yeah.
or saying, "There is nothing new under the sun."
Under the sun.
Now
Yes.
that, as I say, is in a book in the Bible from
Yeah.
King Solomon, and I mean, that was obviously many hundreds, thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
So if that was said then, how much more would we say it now? And
Yeah.
and really, the theme of what I was saying is what I mentioned last week, and that's human ingenuity, which we could say is the sheer brilliance of humans, individuals, and a collective over time. I mean, if we look at the Apollo space project, when men first went to the moon in, I think it was 1969, and some more went in the 70s. I think 12 men altogether stood on the moon.
Mm.
What an incredible achievement! And when you think the first flight in a heavier than air aircraft was by the Wright brothers in 1903, well, 66 years later, we've actually stepped on the moon, which is quite phenomenal. And a bit behind the Apollo project, obviously the people, certainly the first three, are very well known. Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. Aldrin and Armstrong stood on the moon, and they will be forever etched into human history, I guess, as the first humans to stand on another celestial body, another planet in a sense. So, but behind them, they estimated about 400,000 people doing all the different bits which led up to this incredible achievement, this almost invisible network of people, again, who the Apollo people were standing on their shoulders, and rightly acknowledged that fact when they did it. So
Mm.
human ingenuity and achieving that was quite incredible. And in fact, when you may or may not have read about, or there's a film, wasn't there, Apollo 13, which went completely wrong when they got into, I think, beyond Earth orbit, and they were flying to the moon. There was an explosion in the bit behind the command module, the big engine bit, and they
Mm.
could see out the window like smoke, whatever, seeping out into the atmosphere, well, not the atmosphere, into space, the vacuum of space. And what was seeping out was one or two of their oxygen tanks. And the
Mm.
ultimate situation there was they'd lost so much of their oxygen from that command module, which obviously was their life, that was their life hope, that
Mm.
they had to, on the ground, they had incredible people who worked out what they could do to get them back. But first of all, they decided they had to continue to the moon, which was still a couple of days away,
Mm.
go right round it and be slung back towards Earth. But they couldn't stay in the command module. They had to go into the lunar module, where there was very limited space, only for two people, but there were three of them, very
Mm.
limited oxygen, but they could at least turn everything off that they could in the lunar module and the command module to preserve what oxygen there was. And long story short, they went round the moon, headed back, and it really looked as if they would run out of air on the way back. But the people on the ground, the boffins, the brilliant scientists, worked out all the things. People on the ground, the boffins, the brilliant scientists, worked out all the things they could turn off in the command module. So it was in fact it turned freezing while they were still in the lunar module. And of course, then the big danger they eventually had to get back into the command module, hope that it would fire up again, which it did. But they then realized that the carbon dioxide was building up to a lethal amount, which would kill them. So the scientists again had to work on this. How can we make a device in that command module which will suck out the carbon dioxide and preserve their lives? But whatever they decided to make, they knew they had to have those bits and pieces up there in space to be able to do it. Well, of course, as we know now, they did do it. They made some sort of a box. They had found some tape which they had up there, and I don't know the technicalities of it, but one way or another, when the level of carbon dioxide was getting high, they turned this thing on, such as whatever they did, and they gradually saw the level of CO2 going down. It was phenomenal. It's a great film to watch, but it's an example of human ingenuity. There's probably not many better examples of that. And so everything we do, and I think life is such that we do almost inevitably, we have to take things for granted much of the time. We can't go through life in a permanent state of awe and wonder, but I think there's moments, there should be time for that as well. I mean, one thing I've always, almost coming back to sound recording, but I've always wondered how on earth did the first person capture something like sound waves? How did they know? Someone said to you, even in this day and age, or to me, I want you to, with things you can find around, not a recorder, but tell me how you can capture sound waves. We wouldn't have a clue, would we? Any more than we would have a clue how to capture pictures and stuff like that. But they could do this. And then somebody, Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb, he actually invented a device which could both capture sound waves, make recordings, and play them back. Now, to me, it's phenomenal, and I'm sure to all of us, if you think about it, the sheer brilliance of a human being or human beings who can apply their minds, their brains to such incredible problems. And, you know, these things are around us all the time. It's a song I've always liked. You don't often hear it, but it's one by a guy called Ray Stevens, Everything is Beautiful. And, you know, I think when you're in that frame of mind, you look around and you think, it's true. The vast majority of things we see are beautiful. You can look at a spoon. Sounds a bit of a dumb thing to say, but the beauty of a spoon, the shape, we just take these things.